All right. Our next story comes from Krebs on Security. And the title here is Why Phishers Love New TLDs like .shop, .top, and .xyz. Now, I think most everybody's quite familiar with the generic top-level domains. I mean, there's, I think, hundreds of them, if not thousands of them at this point. But this article is pointing out that the economics behind these generic top-level domains, in some instances, is creating what I'll call an attractive nuisance. And he points out that some of these domains can be registered for as little as $1, or in some instances even less. And that leads to, bad actors who don't want to burn a lot of money on domains that they're basically going to get taken down after a certain amount of time. It becomes a financially viable method of attack for them. And so in this article, there's a kind of a ranked list of the TLDs, how common they are, and how many domains have been reported as being associated with crime. And .top, interestingly, is the top one. And I knew it was going to be bad, but I didn't realize that just under 1/3 of all .top domains were reported as malicious in 2024.
That's impressive.
And it's not, 2024 is not over yet. So
makes you wonder if you're just better off just blocking .top like you block country IP ranges.
That when I read this, that was actually the thought that went through my mind. I don't know that certainly there's a lot of vanity type domains. 2/3, we could say, well, 1/3 of them are malicious. Kind of by definition, that means maybe 2/3 of them aren't, or some percentage aren't. And so you would, I think it would behoove you to take more of a allow list approach. So to block it, and then if there's something, some legitimate resource that you need, then allow that. But as a broad spectrum, there's a lot of bad stuff happening on .top.
Yeah.
I did like one of the comments in here. They're interviewing this person who is the author of the book Internet for Dummies, and the president of one of the anti-abuse organizations. And he said selling to criminals and spammers turns out to be a lousy business. And by that he means domains, selling domains. You can charge whatever you want for the first year, but you have to charge list price on domains for renewals. With criminals and spammers, they never renew. And so the point was that in order to get into the business of running one of these generic top-level domains, you have to put a pretty significant investment in, as you might imagine. It's like on the order of $500,000 a year just in kind of like pay to play, plus all of the operations and infrastructure and whatnot that you would have to operate. And
is that why you haven't launched the .llama top-level domain yet?
It is. I'm still saving up for that. Yes.
All right. Well, maybe Santa will bring you a top-level domain for Christmas.
That would be fun. That would certainly be fun. So in any event, these registrars are incentivized to sell large quantities. So when a company or a customer comes and wants to buy a large number of domains, they'll often do it for very cheap. And quite often those are not above board transactions. But the registrar has an incentive to play along. But the point is that while that might be a good one-time infusion of cash, they're not going to renew those, right? They're
right.
they're going to get burned. So
you're never going to get into profitability on that particular customer.
yeah. I also thought it was very interesting that they pointed out that from a trend perspective, and it's not hard to see, like, by the way, it's not hard to see, we all get spam, right? We all get spam. We all get phishing emails. We all get, all sorts of crap. Like, this is not a unique thing. And I'm sure we've all seen .top and some of these other TLDs appear in these questionable links we get. But what they point out here is that there's actually a movement away from parking these, phishing sites or malware sites and onto subdomains of larger properties like blogspot.com and pages.dev and Weebly and whatnot, where they don't have to pay. It's just the process of registering, and in some instances, you can set these up very fast. You can be all automated through APIs and whatnot. And though Blogspot is, for the average person, is kind of a pain in the ass to set up, there are people, and I can tell you firsthand, there are people who have figured out how to mass create Gmail accounts and Blogspot accounts and kind of the whole way through. So that doesn't surprise me. But it is not something I expected to see. So it's, from a trend perspective, I would certainly block Top and maybe some of the others. Take an allow list approach, but also be aware that things like Blogspot, some of the other sites that are perhaps have lots of legitimate tenants are starting to become malicious too. And that, by the way, creates a problem. Like, we've seen this with GitHub, right? Where GitHub has been used to deliver or distribute malware. And it's very effective because you can't, like, at your firewall, at your network, you can't say, I'm going to let all of GitHub through except for this one repository or what have you. So I think that's the challenge that we have with some of these. If you can't, it's binary. You allow blogspot.com through or you don't.
Yeah, and it also breaks URL reputation filtering that's based on, like, recently registered or newly seen. I don't think they go to that level of, like, a subdomain in a blog spot like you would. Hey, like, llama.llama just got registered. I'm not going to trust it.
Right. I suppose if you're using, like, content filters, those are as we've talked about in the past, right? TLS interception is kind of a problem for a lot of people, and I know that many organizations don't even do it anymore, especially with some of the privacy regulations. They just don't even do it anymore. So
I think there's a lot of tension there between that and securing an enterprise that isn't well understood yet, honestly.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely.
I think, well, we're seeing this play out in the U.S. telcos right now. The concept of security with a backdoor for law enforcement being abused by bad actors is a great example of this sort of security versus privacy monitoring oversight. And I'm not taking a stance on this show on that one way or the other. But it's very difficult to have a backdoor that can't be abused by a bad actor. I think we see that. So I don't know, though. As somebody charged with trying to keep an enterprise safe, being able to monitor TLS connections is a very handy tool to try to limit what the bad guys are up to.
Well, especially since it is part of the scheme to help prevent a larger data breach. And so, in the spirit of protecting your employee and customer data, you may have to, you may have to monitor certain things that are maybe not popular, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a different equation when we're talking about individual personal data versus company data on company machines.
Right.
And, I'm sure there are some folks who completely disagree with this, but most acceptable use policies and corporate policies allow full unfettered monitoring of all activity on company devices.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't say that for the purposes of like spying. I think it's or eavesdropping or anything like that. It's really a matter of ensuring that the packets flowing into your network aren't malicious, and when they come in through a TLS tunnel, you're not able to inspect that and apply detonation or what have you. You don't know, and that's a big channel. Like that's a big avenue of attack. It's not the only avenue of attack, but we see like a pendulum. These attacks swing from kind of infrastructure focused to user focused, back to infrastructure and back. So if you don't have the ability to effectively monitor, at least at a network level, that user traffic, your all your eggs are now in the basket of your EDR solution or what have you. So
yep.
Anyhow,